What's going on, you guys? Coming to you today with an Armada build, and I'm using Ryan Kingston's Fleet Builder, the new and improved version, and we're going to be doing an Imperial list today, and the focus for the Imperial list is non-Demolisher Gladiators. Non-Demolisher Gladiators. So, kind of wanted to look at these two and figure out some different things that we could do with them, and I'm really going to be going, I think I'm going to go with Gladiator 1 for my Gladiator of choice. I think the Gladiator 2 is not a ship I really generally want to use as much, just because of the fact that the extra red die on the side is almost a bad thing. I'd usually just rather have extra black dice, because you have to get into black dice range to make it even matter. I mean, it's not really a bad thing. There's certain lists, there's certain builds I could totally do with this ship, but generally I'll want Gladiator 1 instead. I think if I was going Gladiator 2, I would potentially be running, I have a list where I'm going to be running Concentrate Fire all the time, trying to make sure I have double arcs from a distance, and running Vader as my commander, and trying to, nickel and dime my opponent, 1 or 2 damage here, 1 or 2 damage there, every single activation, and that could totally work. But on this one, I'm thinking of trying to use more new stuff, because I think this Gladiator 2, like Swarming Gladiator 2s, is an older build that you could have done as early as Wave 1, or Wave 2, I should say. So looking at the Gladiator 1, there's a couple of things I think that are going to make it viable without Demolisher. So let's look at titles. First off, we also have Insidious. Insidious is one of those titles that came out that people don't really use as much. Some people do, but it's not really used quite so heavily, just because it requires you to get behind another ship, and especially the big bad ships that you're going to want it to get behind. If you can't fire after you move, you may be dead by the time you get around these bigger ships. So I'm thinking of actually running 7th Fleet Star Destroyer. Because, again, you can put this on, you don't have to put this on Imperial Star Destroyers or even Victories, you can put them on the Gladiator. So let's put 7th Fleet Star. Now, the idea here is, when you're defending, if it's targeting your front hull zone, and your front hull zone isn't super large, but it's big enough that if you're flying straight at your enemy, especially in a case where you want to potentially be able to pull up right alongside them and get your side arc in, you can potentially fly. You're going to generally have to fly pretty straight. So when you're at long and even medium range, they're probably only going to have your front hull zone. And you can try to make sure that you're flying that way, and then just turn around a little bit at the end. But 7th Fleet Star Destroyer will be pretty cool, I think. If you're running a swarm of Gladiators. If you're just running, one, then Demolisher is the best way to go. But if we're going to run multiple Gladiators, I think this will be fun. Another new upgrade we get in Wave 7 is going to be the Wide Area Barrage. Now, the Wide Area Barrage is a cool one, and it's not necessarily, perfect for a Gladiator, but I think it's pretty good, because here's why I think it's pretty good. You first off, it requires a black crit. Well, you've got a black dice on all sides. And then, and we're all, to go along with this, we're going to add the almost the mandatory Ordnance Experts. Since we're running black dice on all arcs, Ordnance Experts is almost required for any Gladiator. So let's say we run Ordnance Experts in Wide Area Barrage. We have a pretty good chance of getting that crit. We're going to probably get 2 out of the front arc. We can potentially get up to 4 out of the black. But we're going to at least be able to get 2 extra damage out of our side arcs. So that's, the front arc will probably only get 1. But still, we can trigger this 2 times, because this isn't one of those crits that can only trigger once, right? So we can trigger this out of our front shot and our side shot. Or if we happen to fly in between 2 ships, we can... The strangest thing is, if there is a case where you could fly in between 2, let's say Mon Calamari, like MC-30s or something like that, and you fit right in between them, and you shoot on the left, and it's such a wide area barrage that you hit the guy on the right, and then you fire out the right, and then you hit the guy on the left, which is really funny. And I think something like that would be really, just the mechanics of thinking, that's where gameplay is going to trump the fluff. But I guess you could say that there was shrapnel, like you fired so wide that it went around your ship. I don't know how the mechanics of that would actually work, but generally, and this is also potentially really help you against squadrons as well. Especially, out of those side arcs, you can do 2 damage, and it's close range, which a lot of times squadrons will be at close range because they have to be close to medium range. So you're going to be able to easily, hit those squadrons. So that much is really cool. So And I like this. You're going to have a little bit of defense as you're coming in. You're going to, have some crits to do extra splash damage, really kind of making up for the low to moderate, number of dice you have in your arcs, which, it's really 4 is great, but because they're black, you have to be up close. But so now you're getting in and you can do, as much damage as, a larger ship would do. Like an Imp 1, you can potentially do that much damage in total if you're doing this way. So I like that. Now I'm going to leave a couple of these other slots empty just because I want to really run a lot of ships. But if you weren't running that many, you could definitely put engine techs on there. Since you won't really get accuracies, one of the things I would also suggest is putting intel officer on these guys. That is really, really nice as well. But I have something different in mind. But those are good options, I think, for a ship like this. So one of the other things that I'm going to do is I'm going to run some support. And I'm going to run an interdictor as my flagship. And we're going to run Ozzel as my commander here. Even though Mahdi, I think, might be a little bit better, I'm pushing it close on points for what I have planned. So Ozzel comes in at a little cheaper, and he still definitely works. If I want to start my Gladiators kind of slow and then speed them up, and then potentially slow them down again, like especially banking a nav token and having concentrate fire potentially planned, Ozzel's going to really let them, kind of go in real slow, or maybe even come to a complete stop and then jump up to speed 2, or even speed 3 if I have the nav token and the command. So that would be fun. And I think you could, with the Gladiators, if you're not running Demolisher, you're going to want to kind of catch your opponent off guard in hopes of actually lining up a couple of these shots. But the other reason the interdictor is in here for is to support these guys and keep them alive. So let's see what the interdictor has on him. Well, the first thing is target scrambler. Targeting scrambler, because we're going to have to get in close range, but I want them to stay alive long enough to shoot, because I may not be first player here. I'm probably not going to be first player, because like I said, I'm pushing it kind of close. So I'm going to potentially, if I speed up with Ozzel, and maybe I activate last, I'm going to be putting a couple of Gladiators in close range of enemy ships. And so I'll want to keep my interdictor close enough to be able to force my opponent to re-roll some dice, since they could potentially, hopefully, and I can have my Gladiator with the front hull zone pointed towards them, so I can use 7th Fleet to reduce one of the damage. But before I do that, I make them re-roll a couple of dice with targeting scrambler, minimize that damage, spend what defense tokens I can, but also spend the 7th Fleet to minimize that. This is really going to help keep my Gladiators alive long enough to return fire and trigger those wide area barrages, and then fly away and maybe get some rear shots as well on the way as we circle around. So that's one of the things I want up there. I have another slot here, so I'll go ahead and probably give this guy grab shift reroute. That's just always really useful. It's just an all around great card, especially nowadays. I really like it. So that one's good. The other options we have is we could go with the Gravwell projector if we want to be able to be ready to counter Radis. So either one of these would be good here. As a matter of fact, I don't think I'm going to be picking objective based I think I'm going to go with this one just because I think my objectives are not going to be as just obstacle based. So we're going to go with that. So next up, we've got to have the heavy ions on the interdictor. Heavy ions is going to be crucial because, the interdictor is just a great ship for it. And we also want to throw on disposable capacitors as well. So it's this way our interdictor is now a very serious threat. And I can potentially have my interdictor fire first before my Gladiators go in and proceed to do all kinds of black dice damage. I can take down the shields first. Fun, lots of good stuff here. And if we want, we can even take one of these off if we want to. If we could take the Gravwell projector off, if we wanted to have, if you're too close for points and you're not really comfortable with the way everything else works, you could do that. But we're only at 199 points. We have 2 ships, so here comes the fun part. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add some more. So we're going to add, duplicate this Gladiator. Boom. So 2 Gladiators, 3 Gladiators, 4 Gladiators. So we're running 4 of these. Now the problem is you'd have to have 4 Gladiators to do this. You'd have to have 2 Chimeras, which I know a lot of people are buying a second one for the extra titles and the extra gauntlet fighters. And if not, you can probably just borrow somebody else's. But yeah, so we're running 4 of these Gladiators. So you're going to have, even if they do get destroyed, you're going to have a bunch of them. And in the one that's in front, can be, let's see, can we even use 7th Fleet Star Destroyer like 3 times? When defending against the targets that target your front hull zone before you suffer damage, you may choose and exhaust a copy of this card. So this is an ability. If my lead Gladiator is getting attacked, I would only be able to exhaust one other copy a single time, because I'm triggering my card to exhaust another one. If there's a subsequent attack, then I could trigger yet another one. So it'd be 1 per attack. So that's nice. So if I get, like, I move up against somebody else and I get double arced. So all of that stuff is nice. Also, potentially against squadrons too. I could imagine that would be helpful too. But with 4 copies of this, it's really we're gonna have some nice damage mitigation, as well as the targeting scrambler and interdictor title, allowing it to be reset, so I can potentially use targeting scrambler 2 times. That's also very, very nice. So now this doesn't leave us any room for squadrons, which could be a problem. But I'm going to finish this build, and I'll show you some ways that you can modify this to add some squadrons. So let's talk about the objectives. For assault, since I have 5 ships and they're all shooting ships, I think this is a good opportunity to use opening salvo. This is going to give all of my ships extra dice of their choice. For my gladiators, they can add black dice, which is going to be really, really nice for a wide area barrage, and it can also let me potentially add those for long range attacks. So if my gladiators are coming in straight forward, if I want to go ahead and shoot with red dice, I can add 2 red and then 2 black, concentrate fire, add a 3rd black at long range, trigger wide area barrage, and do that 4 times while we're at long range. While the interdictor is also at long range, popping disposable capacitors and rolling all those blue dice, and just having a lot of fun with that. So very much a fan of that option, especially since the interdictor doesn't have any way to re-roll dice. So if I end up not getting the blue crit, I can add more blue crits with an opening salvo for that first shot, or add black dice if my initial dice roll is nice, then I can add black dice with opening salvo if I'd like. So fun stuff there with these particular objectives, and the idea is hopefully that you'll knock out those ships really, really quick, and then I don't have to worry about the squadrons anymore. Next up is our defense objective, and I think we are probably going to go ahead and go with fleet ambush. And one of the reasons that I like fleet ambush for cases like this is because I have no squadrons, and this is going to force my opponent to deploy all their squadrons last. So it's as if I had 5 ships and 16 squadrons, because my opponent won't get any deployment advantage for deploying those squadrons ahead of time. And it also allows me to, try to gang up on whatever their farthest forward ship is with this army of gladiators, without having to worry about their entire fleet's worth of close range dice coming back to bite me. The only risk there is if they have a lot of really nasty squadrons, they can potentially deploy them even farther forward, and I'll start taking squadron damage much sooner, so that'll require me to fly past them, and that's where Ozzel comes in handy, because it'll make them harder for them to anticipate where I'm going to move. I think my interdictor could suffer the most out of that, but potentially, I can get some damage onto the carrier and get some crossover damage to hit those ships as early as possible. All right, next up, navigation. We're going to go with Solar Corona, just because we're at such a deployment disadvantage with this build. They're going to potentially have a really hard time. So there's really no good option for my opponent. If you're playing against a list like this and you have a lot of ships also, opening salvo could potentially be good, especially if you have ways in your list to mitigate bad dice rolls, because you're going to be stuck with red dice, which can be blank. So if you've got things like TRC or Darth Vader as your commander, or concentrate firepower, then maybe you'd pick opening salvo. If you also have no squadrons, fleet ambush could potentially work. Or if if you're just really confident that your build is a counter for this, go ahead and go with Solar Corona. Solar Corona is also nice if you're running black dice, and you don't have to worry about potentially firing into the Corona and having to remove an accuracy, since I'm probably not going to get many the interdictor could potentially get accuracies, but I'll set him up in a way that he's not going to fire into the Corona. But the first player wouldn't have that option. So if you're player 1 and you're running mostly black dice ships, you might consider trying Solar Corona. But yeah, that is that's the list so far, guys. I will go ahead and let me do a kind of a printout of the list. Let me know what you think of this list. I also want to talk about some other ways that we can look at potentially, adding some squadrons here. And I think the easiest way to add some squadrons would just be to drop one of the gladiators. Just go with 3, and then you can add some squadrons. And you could even, at this point, you could swap out Ozzel for somebody like maybe Thrawn or Mahdi. Mahdi would be helpful. Thrawn could give you the squadron commands. And then, because the gladiators aren't half bad. They can do 2 for squadrons. The interdictor could do 2. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 ships that can all do squadron commands. And then, so you're looking at, you can hit up to 8 squadrons this way. You're at 333. So even if you were to just add regular TIE fighters, and we add, how many could we add of those? 6, 7, 8. We could add 8 TIE fighters. That's a lot of That's a lot of TIE fighters. And we're at 397 that way. Well, that's with Ozzel. So if who else could we add instead of Oz? We could go up to 223. Sloan would put us over. So when we drop maybe a Gravwell projector or something like that, we could do Sloan. But then everybody would have to potentially be doing squadron commands. So, we don't necessarily want that. But maybe we drop a TIE fighter and we'll go down to 7, and then we'll add Thrawn. 399. There you go. So there's different ways that you can run this list, but I like the no squadron way sometimes. I think it's fun to play without squadrons, but as some people have pointed out to me, this game is kind of based off of World War II combat, and there was just a lot of aircraft. You didn't really want your battleships getting close enough to the other battleships. That usually didn't happen. It was usually, those a lot of the air stuff. So if we're keeping true to like military battles, the squadrons would be far more prevalent than is my taste. I think it boils down to the fact that I kind of really liked the old Star Wars battles. I like the old Star Trek battles. From like Deep Space Nine, and even the few that you saw in Star Trek: The Next Generation, and there weren't as many squadron based. It was more capital ship versus capital ship combat, and I really liked that, and so I kind of really long for them to make a Star Trek version of Armada. If this game ever gets discontinued, I hope there rises about a Star Trek version of this, because I think that would be really, really fun. But now I'm getting off topic. I have some good news, though. I have a winner to announce today, so we're going to talk about our winner. And our winner is Stephen Esvin. You have just won a $20 Cool Stuff gift card, so make sure you contact me on the back end of my channel, and I'll get your contact information. And congratulations to you, sir, and everybody else. There is still another giveaway going on, so check out my Siege Storm review. I'm doing a giveaway of that, and it was originally marketed as a collectible card game, kind of like Magic, but I've heard recently that they're changing the format to be more of like a living card game, so the expansions will be set cards, so that's actually makes it a lot more of an appealing game. And you can win a starter that I will ship anywhere in the world. There's about another week or so left on that giveaway, so check that out. I'll put a link to that right here. So make sure you're clicking on all those things. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you are subscribed. You can enter in any future giveaways as well by leaving a comment on this or any one of my other videos. But the Siege Storm giveaway, you have to leave a comment on that video specifically. So definitely check that out. And let me know what you think of the build, guys. And make sure you're watching Rebels. We got a finale coming up very, very soon. So thank you for everything. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And I appreciate all the support. Thank you guys so much for watching. And have a great day.